I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, where the weather is perfect and the roads are just sublime. What do we have today on the show? The new AMG GT C. Now, this new AMG has more power under the hood, 557 horsepower, and a better rear axle. It's wider to put the power down better. They say it's better to drive despite being a convertible. We have some of the finest driving roads around. Let's take a look. With its canyons, cactus, coyotes, and wide open roads, Arizona is almost the perfect place to test a car. The Roadster, in fact, is a new drop-top version of AMG's GT, which so far was only available as a coupe. The Roadster's got a wider rear section that looks pretty nice. Of course, the coupe's cockpit-like cabin is gone, that shrunken cabin, that's gone. But you do get this new grille that they call Panamericana after the famous road race that they won. In its journey from coupe to roadster, the GT has gained around 50 kilos, used as additional bracing to make the car stiff. What's impressive is that the 3-layer fabric roof absorbs noise quite well. It's never absolutely hushed in the cabin, but I don't have to raise my voice to converse with my passenger either. Squeeze the throttle harder and the wind noise fades out, and the roar of the V8 fades right in. The engine note is throaty, it pops, it crackles on overrun, and just sounds fabulous. Under the hood, the 4-liter bi-turbo V8 has been worked on to help it deliver 557 horsepower. It's called the GT C, but it's closer actually to the GTR with its wider rear fenders, wider track, and 4-wheel steering system. But what's it like to drive? Does it drive better than the GT Coupe? And is the additional power just as usable as on the earlier car? The first bit of surprise is that the ride isn't really comfortable or cushy. There's a bit of shimmy, the springs are stiff even in comfort mode, and you can feel each and every one of the bumps as they come through. Yes, there is a layer of comfort over it, there is some padding, there is some isolation, but it isn't really comfortable, and the big bumps go thud-thud quite often. What I don't get is any looseness or scuttle shake, something you often get in convertibles when you chop the load-bearing roof off. Well, the other thing I don't really like too much about this car is the steering. Yes, it's accurate and well, it sort of guides you in the right direction, but you've got to concentrate and place the car properly each and every time. And it does move around a bit when you're going pretty quick, and that's probably because of the chassis stiffness. The rear wheel steering system, however, works really well. On twisty canyon roads, the GTC feels smaller and tighter than I remember. There's also tremendous grip coming out of corners with the electronically controlled rear diff lock feeding just the right amount of power to the wheels. Of course, they're absolutely crazy, but is this incredible twin turbo engine. Now they've really wound it up to the max it can make, and when you put your foot down, it just sticks and goes. It's just so much torque, and it pulls from anywhere on the power band. Just incredible. There's no delay, it's just on it all the way till 7,000 RPM. Fabulous. It still has to be one of the best turbocharged V8s around. And of course, what makes it all the more interesting is that V8 soundtrack. And the fact that you can hear it so much clearly here, so much better in the convertible, well, that just makes it special. The other thing with this car, of course, is that you tend to forget just how fast it is. A good 3 or 4 second squeeze and you're way past the speed limit. So you really got to curb yourself, you got to make sure there's nobody around, and then yeah, well, you can pull it a bit harder. And the other standout feature on this car, absolutely brilliant feature, are the brakes. You just They just give you so much confidence. You can sort of feel your way into the corner, feel your way to the apex, settle the car down, and then get on the gas really hard. AMG's GT C is fast, seductive, and very engaging to drive. The car we'll get in India, however, won't be quite as exciting. That car, the GT Roadster, gets a less powerful 476 horsepower engine, no four-wheel steering, no adjustable dampers, and only a mechanical rear differential. What's likely to be unchanged, however, is the GT's sense of fun. The stunning looks, the explosive power of the engine, the sharp handling, but is it worth an estimated 2.5 crores? Well, that's something we can only tell you once we get our hands on the car sometime in November. Can't wait.
The Mini range is really expanding these days, isn't it? And no, I'm not talking only about the size of the cars themselves, but also the number of models you have to choose from. For instance, you can have a 2-door convertible. In case you like the wind in your hair, you can have the 3-door hatchback, which is the classic Mini experience. And if you want a bit more practicality, there's even the option of a 5-door hatchback that's a little bit bigger. This, however, is the biggest Mini yet. Now technically it's a 6-door hatchback, but Mini would rather that you called it the Clubman. So just what is a Clubman? Well, it's actually meant to be Mini's version of a practical station wagon, but with its long wheelbase and wheels pushed out to the corners, you'll agree it's more of a stretched hatchback than anything else. This is meant to be the Mini for the family, and the practicality is all there. Open the trick rear barn doors, one of the many retro throwbacks, and you'll find a 360-litre boot. It's not huge by any standard, but more than any other Mini. You can expand it to 1,250 litres by folding the seats, and there's even a deep recess under the floor. Like in all Minis, there's no spare tyre. You can buy one from the dealer, but you'll have to figure out where to put it. On the outside, there's no mistaking this for anything but a Mini, but at the same time, something is clearly a bit different. For one, it's visibly wider, with a more bulbous face and an even larger grille. At 4.2 meters, it's much longer, and the massive 2.7 meter wheelbase really shows that. But with these optional 18-inch wheels, it's still got that classic slammed Mini stance. Round the back is where things are really different. Apart from the cool twin rear doors, the tail is a lot more upright, and the horizontal tail lamps aren't quite as cute as the traditional red lozenges you get on most Minis. It's a look that's divided opinion, but you will agree, it's still very retro chic. The front of the cabin is something we know and love. It's a bit different from the hatchback, but still oozes that quirky charm. Front and center is the LED ringed circular dial that houses the infotainment screen. There are loads of cool toggle switches to operate just about everything, and quality is up to BMW's lofty standards. The seats are manually adjustable, but they're just so snug and comfortable, perfect for long distances or when you're hammering up a mountain road. Now this car is fully loaded with a minified version of BMW's iDrive that now features a touchscreen. There's ambient lighting, paddle shifters, a panoramic sunroof, and an excellent Harman Kardon sound system. But much of this is optional, and that can drive up the price quite a bit. All this is mostly for the driver though, so what's it like if you're a passenger? Now, ordinarily, I wouldn't bother telling you much about the back seat of a Mini because really, the front seat is where all the magic happens. However, since this is the most practical Mini yet, it's worth taking a look, right? Well, it's still a very Mini experience, what with the round retro motifs all over the place. There's even this nice Union Jack finish on the back of the headrest. But what is very un-Mini-like is the space and comfort on offer. The back seat is really quite comfortable, enough support and a good backrest. Headroom is more than sufficient, and legroom, well, it's more than you get in any luxury hatchback. In fact, it's on the same level as some compact luxury sedans. It's even got a nice AC vent here for the rear, and it's even got a panoramic sunroof option. So, this is definitely a Mini you wouldn't mind taking your family and friends out for a drive-in. And speaking of driving, time to take the Clubman onto our favorite mountain road and see what's what. The Mini Clubman is only available as a Cooper S, and that means it gets the 2-litre turbocharged petrol engine, the same one you get in the hatchback and the convertible. Now, while the engine is the same as before, the difference is the gearbox. It no longer uses the old 6-speed automatic, it uses the 8-speed automatic that we first saw in the BMW X1. And while the 6-speed gearbox was really good, this one is even better. It has more ratios to play with, and it slurs through them so seamlessly you just can't tell it's there. It works really well when you're going flat out, anticipating your every move before you make it, but where it really excels is in the city, where it just goes about its business so silently and unobtrusively. And when you pick up the pace and drive really fast, it's always second-guessing your next move before you've even made it. It's really, really clever and intuitive. Now back to the engine. It makes the same 192 horsepower and 280 Newton meters as before, and it does it so smoothly and seamlessly. There's very little in the way of turbo lag, and it just goes about its business in one constant surge of power. In fact, it even gets a second wind at about 2,300 RPM and goes even faster. The rate of acceleration just picks up after that. Now you can spec this car with driving modes, and there are 3 to choose from: Green, Mid and Sport. Now Green is obviously the economical one, and it even has a feature that lets you decouple the engine under coasting for even better economy. However, unless you really want to eke out every last litre of petrol from this car, we don't really recommend Green mode because frankly responses are just a bit too sluggish even for city use. In the city, the one you want to use is Mid, and that's sort of the perfect in-between mode for all sorts of driving conditions. Responses are good enough, and it is also very smooth, so that's the one you'll want to stay in. Of course, if you really want to have a good time, you got to stick it into Sport, which, as Mini says, gives you the full go-kart experience. It also helps to tap the gear lever to the side to engage Sport mode there. Apart from much healthier responses from the engine and the gearbox, you also get a nice rotty soundtrack to go with your drive. Hey! Now another area where the drive modes really matter is in the dynamics, because this car is fitted with dynamic dampers, and boy do they make a difference. For a start, in Green or Mid modes, it is truly a comfortable riding experience. Yes, you can feel an underlying firmness, but it handles bumps really quite well, which is not something you can say of the standard Mini hatchback, which is really quite firm. It makes it a great city runabout because you don't get tossed around or jarred by bumps in town, and it stays quite planted on the highway as well. Of course, putting it into Sport mode firms things up quite a bit, and then you feel like you're in a proper Mini because you are jiggled about just a little bit, but that only adds to the fun of the driving experience. The other thing Sport mode does is firm up the steering, and that's really great when you want to attack some corners really hard. What's a bit unusual is that it doesn't weigh up enough when you cross into serious 3-digit speeds, and that can be a little disconcerting out on the highway. But whichever mode you choose, what is amply clear is that this is very much a Mini from behind the wheel. The handling is just sublime. There's very little body roll, and you can barely tell that you're in a much larger car than the regular hatchback once you're on the move. Turn-in is just so sharp and so precise, and it just flings itself into corners. This is a front-wheel drive car that loves to oversteer. It's unbelievable. Even with the longer wheelbase and larger dimensions, it still tucks in ever so neatly, and the steering is so sharp and accurate. Just love to fling it around. So it may have grown up a bit, but this is still very much a Mini from behind the wheel. Now, if you've even considered a Mini Clubman, that means you're shopping in a very niche part of the luxury market, because this car really has no rivals. At 38 lakh rupees, it's priced well out of the realm of conventional luxury hatchbacks, and once you start piling on the options, you'll find it's well into compact luxury SUV territory. Now that might be a deal breaker for some, and on top of that, there will be those that say its size means it's just no longer a Mini anymore. To them I say, please go have a test drive, because you'll find that from behind the wheel, it is every bit a Mini. It also retains all the lovely retro quirk and charm of the hatchback, and on top of that, it's so much more spacious, practical and comfortable that you could use it as an everyday car. So, expensive it may be, it is still a superb Mini, and it could very well be all the car you could ever need.
Now when you think of large, comfortable cruisers, and you club that up with the wide American freeways, the first thing that probably comes to your mind is Harleys. Well, the fact of the matter is, there are a lot of other good cruiser manufacturers out there, and Indian certainly is one of them. There's a certain charm that Tigers exude that really tug at your heartstrings. This is a genre of motorcycle that instantly makes you want to throw on a leather jacket, throw a few clothes in the storage bin, and simply hit the open road for a few days. If you think what we've got here is a boat, we wouldn't completely blame you. After all, it is about 8.5 feet long and weighs about 360 kilos. What this is, in fact, is a 2017 Indian Chieftain Dark Horse, which is essentially a blacked out base version of the Indian Chieftain, which is a great bike to begin with. Its sinister appearance, in fact, does not translate to more goodies. The Chieftain Dark Horse actually gives some features from the Chieftain a miss, and this is the base version of the series. Starting at the front, you get this sleek, flowing and solid looking front mudguard with the signature illuminated Native American chief's head. Atop the front wheel sits a positively bulbous fairing that ensures your upper body is completely free from any stray wind blast. It houses a large central main headlight with two comparatively large auxiliary lights sitting on either side of it. To ensure even further wind protection, there's a height adjustable electronically controlled windscreen that is operated via easy to use switches located on the left switchgear. The simple, elegant looking tank gets a central strip that has a large keyless start-stop power button and two more switches to lock and unlock the motorcycle and the saddlebags as well. Although there are two fuel caps, only the right fuel cap is actually functional. The left filler cap is simply a styling element. It gets a supremely comfortable single seat with the backrest and pillion seats available as add-ons. The solid rear fender is exquisitely chiseled. It flows towards the floor into a swooping tip that gives the whole motorcycle a sort of regality about it. Although this isn't a completely new motorcycle, Indian have certainly got the seating position right with this one. Once you get astride, it simply engulfs you in comfort. Even a 1,000-mile saddle sore wouldn't cause much soreness at all. You'd probably need to add another few hundred miles for that to happen. And another great thing is the seat height. It's low enough to be comfortable for shorter riders as well. The seating geometry is authoritative and relaxed at the same time. Although this Chieftain Dark Horse version does miss out on the 7-inch TFT screen that's found on the 2017 Chieftain and Roadmaster, you do get a fair amount of goodies to keep you well engaged. flanking the instrument cluster are two 100-watt speakers that ensure those long saddle hours never become a bore. It gets a Bluetooth and smartphone compatible music system that also picks up on FM and AM radio stations via the antenna at the rear. All of this is controlled via an easy to operate button system located on the left switchgear. Although the buttons do feel durable and premium, they do require a fair bit of force to operate. On the right switchgear, you get the cruise control buttons to regulate and manage speed on those endless highway runs. Now, even though this isn't a new engine by any means, it simply steals the show with its refinement and elegance. The 1811cc air-cooled Thunderstroke 111 V-twin motor is an absolute gem from Indian. It makes 138.9 Nm of torque that is spread smoothly and evenly over the rev range. It's nearly vibe-free and there's ample thrust available in each gear. The bike accelerates smoothly off the line, and with the amount of torque on tap, you can pull away easily from speed breakers in as high as third gear. Sifting through the gearbox is certainly not a necessity. The 6-speed gearbox, although a little hard to operate, never misshifts and provides positive feedback. The engine has a very relaxed nature about it and ambles about effortlessly, with a lovely muffled rumble from its twin exhausts. And riding the Chieftain Dark Horse is simply a meditative experience. This stems from a rather well-balanced chassis, steering geometry and suspension setup. The bike turns in very easily, precisely and with a lot of confidence. Although its immense length means navigating through heavy traffic can become a cumbersome experience. Even the ride quality is rather well handled. The 46mm front forks and the air adjustable monoshock at the back handle big bumps rather well, and the ride is very pliant for the most part. And the 142mm of ground clearance means you don't have to worry too much about those long chromed out silencer tubes scraping over large speed breakers. And for bringing that 377 kg mass to a halt, the ABS equipped twin 300mm front discs and a single 300mm rear disc provide more than sufficient stopping power and great feel as well.
Even though this is a cheap motorcycle by no means, Indian has ensured that the high levels of refinement and riding pleasure really shine through. And it has a mind-boggling number of customizations available. So if it falls within your budget and you're in the market for a high-end long-distance cruiser, you should definitely consider this as your next motorcycle.